How good is good enough? Everybody has goals, no matter what it is that you do. I have never met anybody who has aspired to mediocrity. Have you? Like, when I grow up, I want to be mediocre at doing this. Ever met somebody like that? No. Everybody wants to be great at what it is that they're doing. But the problem we have with that is that we don't understand, well, what is great? What is good enough? How good do I have to get to go through the portal through which I want to go? It's all about having goals, first of all. And so here at ASU, the question is, how am I going to attain those goals? So what is it that we hope to gain here from all your hard-earned tuition money that's going out of your and your parents' wallets here to ASU? What is it that you're hoping to get from here? That is a question. Tell me. What do you want from this? Anybody?
A degree.
A degree. Okay, a degree. Fine. It's good. And what do you hope to get in the process of gaining that degree?
Knowledge on how to do your craft.
Knowledge on your craft. Yes. Okay, we want knowledge, information. What else?
How to apply that knowledge to our career.
How to apply that knowledge. Yeah, absolutely. Good answers. Anything else?
Just experience.
Experience. All good answers. In addition to that, you're surrounded here with peers and faculty and guest artists that hopefully will inspire you. Some of them may actually push you a little bit. You may say, oh, that sounds better than me. I want to get that. I want to get what he has. I want to get as good as that. And no matter how old you are and how long you've been doing this, you're still feeling that way. When I joined the Baltimore Symphony in 1981, the bass trombonist who was leaving the position, John Engelkis, he was leaving to go to the San Francisco Symphony. John and I happened to be staying together at the home of the principal trombone player, Jim Olin, for a few days. Jim was out of town, John and I were crashing there, and I had this unique opportunity to spend time with another really good bass trombone player, because usually there's only one in an orchestra at a time. And so we did what any two musicians would do when you have a few days together. We played duets. And I liked John's trigger and pedal register. It was better than mine. And then I knew why he had won San Francisco and I didn't. But I was glad he did, because then I could win Baltimore. Okay, so it all worked out. But I said to him, John, I want what you have. How do I get it? Now, I was already a good player, but I wasn't too proud to say to another peer, I like what you've got. It's better than mine. How can I get it? And he made a good suggestion to me. And I implemented the suggestion, and 6 weeks later, I was closer to what he had than what I had before. It was all about being able to be inspired by somebody else. So you're getting training here, you're practicing and working hard, you're getting inspired, but the question is, what are the qualities that we need to have in order to get the very best from this environment that we're in now, and the very best from any environment that we're in? I see 4 of them in particular. 4 qualities that we need to always keep before us as what we're seeking if we're going to improve. The first is desire. You have to know what you want and work to get it. But you have to want it first. If you don't have the desire, if you don't really have that desire to excel and to achieve something, there's no way you're going to get it, because it's not just going to come at you. First, you need desire. Second, you need patience. You need to take the time it will take in order to get what you want. Now, patience is a virtue we can only learn when we're in impatient situations. We can't just say, oh, I'm going to practice being patient today. All right? It only comes when we're not. It comes with the negative. Okay? So we have to be patient and realize that there are no quick fixes. There is nothing that comes immediately. If you have a teacher that tells you, here's a quick fix to fix everything in your playing, find another teacher, because they're not telling you the truth. So we need patience. Then we need perseverance. Sticking with the task, whatever it is that you are working to get, sticking with it and not giving up. That's another big one already now. Desire, patience, perseverance. 3 really important things that we really have to understand. That's really what we need in order to achieve a goal. And then the 4th one, You need to know what the standard is. What is required to succeed? You need to be good enough to succeed or to win in any situation you put yourself into. But the question is, how good is good enough? Now, all of you here are in school in particular degree programs to do training for particular things. So we have people here who are training to be professional orchestral players, to be professional soloists or chamber music players, to be freelancers, freelance players or teachers, elementary or secondary school teachers, or college, university, conservatory teachers. Those 5 general categories are what we're looking for here as performers. And others will study business of music and recording and all those other things. But fundamentally as performers, you're going to be a professional player or teacher. You're going to be an educator of some kind. And so the question is, what is the standard for success for each of those kinds of goals that you might have? It's different for each one. It's different. When we evaluate juries here, as we did last month in this very room, we didn't listen to our doctoral students with the same ears we listened to our freshmen. Because the standard is different, because there's been different progress. So here we have, how do we find out what the standard is for whatever the success in whatever area we want to be? So for instance, if you're a student that's heading to a college audition, what's the standard of what you want to find around you so you know that you're going to be able to make it into that? So suppose you're a high school senior right now and you're coming to ASU. What's a good way to find out what the standard is? Come to concerts at ASU. Listen to students. Listen to band concerts, wind ensemble concerts, orchestra concerts, chamber music, and you hear recitals. Suppose you're a graduate student. You're going for graduate studies at a school, and you want to say, well, how good are students at this school? Well, you go to the school library, to their audio library, and listen to recitals of students. You can get, all of your recitals are here archived at ASU. You can get them on the internet. So can everybody else, like it or not. They're there. So you listen to what's happening there and say, okay, these are the students that are performing and giving recitals now. I have an idea of a kind of standard. For professional players that are taking professional auditions, you listen to concerts by, let's just say you're going to audition for the Chicago Symphony next week. Well, I hope you've listened to the Chicago Symphony. I hope you've listened to the solo recordings of the players that are in there. I hope you've listened to live concerts. We have to realize that when we're auditioning for professional groups, and we all have those kinds of aspirations at one time or another, in one way or another, that our goal is to get in that group and to immediately fit in and play in it. But professional ensembles are not training grounds. They're proving grounds. So you have to be able to say, the day I win that audition, and then the day that I set myself into the chair in that orchestra, I belong there. I'm no longer just the new guy, the young guy, the one that just graduated from college. I belong there. I need to be there. I'm an equal peer, an equal contributor. And we shouldn't be intimidated by that. For educators, if you're interviewing and auditioning for a high school band job, what's the standard? Question to yourself. Who's leading the best band programs around in the area? Who are they? What are they doing? Whose bands are winning competitions? Whose students are all getting into All-State? Notice that. You want to be like those kinds of programs. Questions now are 2. How much will you work? And how much will you sacrifice? Now, sacrifice is not a very popular word, especially if you were a young Mayan being sacrificed or something. I'm not talking about that kind of sacrifice. What I'm saying is that intentionally, you have things that you can and will do in your life that you're going to have to give up in order to attain what it is that you want. Because let me tell you something, if you haven't already figured it out, that you will not win the audition or get the job or be successful at the interview by being lucky. I don't believe in luck. That's not a word that is really in my vocabulary. But we all use it. We think, well, somehow or other it's going to work out. But If orchestral excerpts are required at an audition, and you can't play them exactly as written, I can tell you this, you won't get lucky and play them exactly as written at the audition. Just won't happen. If you haven't been able to do it in your own personal crucible, it's not just going to happen that you will be able to do them. So you need to be able to prepare material yourself and then replicate it at the audition, whether it's at a jury, a recital, an audition for a summer music festival, professional job, or a job interview for a teaching job. Something I find so interesting, each of these different kinds of jobs have different kinds of portals through which you have to go. For instance, college auditions. All of you audition here at ASU, and I think all of the brass faculty require a certain number of things, and then you get a choice of a certain number of things. So for instance, in trombone, I ask all students to play a solo from this representative list. It doesn't have to be something on there, but there's a list of solos for tenor and bass trombone to give you an idea of the level for undergraduate and graduate studies. And then each student has to play 2 excerpts that I prescribe, and then I say, choose 4 more of your own. Or pick a co-brush etude, or a Bordoni vocalise. Okay, certain things I prescribe, certain things you get to choose. When you have the opportunity to choose something for an audition, that means it will be great to the person who's listening. Because the person listening knows that you could choose any piece in the world. When it says you can choose 4 orchestral excerpts, you can choose any 4. Any 4. And so if you get to choose, people listening say, oh, he chose that. He must be able to play it well. She must be able to do a good job on this. Does that make sense to you? I'm trying to give you the ears of the people who are listening. So don't go into an audition and choose something that you can't really play well. There may be something that's required that you can't play as well, maybe as other things. But when you get a choice, be sure it's really, really good. For juries, your evaluation, as I mentioned, is based on your degree and your grade. Standards are different for all degrees and all levels here, but there is still this same goal of excellence. And so we say, is this person presenting excellence for a first-year undergraduate student? Is this person presenting excellence for a second-year doctoral student? And your teachers and your adjudicators and the people on the other side of the screen at the audition, or the people across the table when you're interviewing for that band director job, they understand what those standards are for people at different levels. At professional auditions, as I mentioned, you have to fit in immediately. When I left the Baltimore Symphony to go to the Boston Symphony, my last concert was at Carnegie Hall, and my car was packed, and after the concert I drove from New York City to Boston, and the next day, my first service with the Boston Symphony was a concert that night, and it was a television show for Evening at Pops. It used to be on, it went off the air about 10 years ago. But for many years, we would record 8 different shows every spring, and they'd be on TV. So my first concert with the Boston Symphony was no rehearsal, television show, cameraman right here. And I wasn't intimidated by it, because for me, playing that concert was like playing any other concert that I had ever played. I knew right away I had to fit in immediately. There was no ramp up period. Oh, we're going to give him a few concerts to get his feet wet. Doesn't work that way. I was going to get a paycheck on Friday. I was an equal member of the orchestra. And so we have to be able to fit in immediately and have that kind of confidence. Educators, when you interview for a job, your enthusiasm, even more than your accomplishments, and how you relate to people is going to really get noticed. I was a high school band director. I got the job as a band director. This was 1979. I was a band director for 2 years, and I won that position. I think not because I had greater qualifications than someone else. I had no job. I had no portfolio. I was a freelance player in New York City. I had nothing to present to the people that were interviewing me for the job, except my enthusiasm and my vision, which conquered the fact that I had no, quote, band director experience. And the same for you. For those of you who are want to be educators, you're going to graduate in your senior year and you want a job, you're going to go into that with only internships behind you that every educator has had. How are you going to distinguish yourself? It's your enthusiasm and how you relate to people, how you can communicate, and how you speak to the people that are at your interview. So, in order to succeed through all these portals, we need particular qualities. So here are a number of things that I think we can pay attention to. As players, and we're all players, and you will always be a player, even if you're going to be an educator, you must be in a perpetual state of being warmed up. That's the every minute idea. If you need 2 hours in the morning to get warmed up, you're doing something wrong. You're spending way too much time doing that. Because with the amount of playing that you're doing, you should be constantly warmed up. I'm not saying you shouldn't do a warm-up, but I'm saying you can't rely on that every day in order to play, because you're going to be in situations where you're not going to get the time that you want. If you need, as I often say, Jupiter to align with Mars and all the stars to be perfect in their orbit in order for you to play your very best, you're never going to play your best, because that's never going to happen. It's never going to line up just like that. Your life will not support a 2-hour warm-up, and if you need a particular regimen in order to play your best, you're tying yourself into that. And what happens when you're not allowed to do that? Do you fall to pieces because you're not able to get what you feel you need in order to play your best? One of the things that I'm working on with my students is to try to get everybody to understand that playing a recital or playing an audition is really simply an extension of your playing in the practice room. If we try to make it into a moment that's so much greater than that, we put so much pressure on ourselves and try to create a new environment of playing that we have no experience with on a day-to-day basis. I've always looked at performances as simply an extension of what I do privately. I practice in the practice room, I go out on stage and I play, and to me it seems very comfortable and very natural. Now you may say, it's easy for you to say, you're nearly 60 years old, you've been doing this your whole life. No, I felt this way when I was your age as well. I didn't try to create the big moment of the performance. Sure, I was heightened and interested and excited and looking forward to it, but I didn't try to create something completely different. I didn't change my routine before a concert. I didn't change my routine before an audition. I simply kept doing what I was always doing, because that's what I knew best, and that's where I knew I could play my very best. How many times have you been to an audition and you finish playing and you say, I could do that in the practice room, but I just couldn't do it there? Well, why don't you bring the practice room to the stage? Bring the practice room with you, because that's where you did it great. Just didn't happen that anyone was there to listen to it except you, right? So if you bring it with you, you can bring that to present to those who are on the other side of the screen or across the table. I don't mean to be simplistic, pardon me, but actually sometimes we make things more difficult than they should be. Okay. Competition in all of the jobs that you're looking for is fierce. Fierce. ASU is one of the top schools of music in the country. But there are a lot of other people that are in school right now that are training to do the exact same thing you want and want the same job that you want. I've told people many times that it's easier to get elected as a governor of a state than it is to win a job as a bass trombone player in a major symphony orchestra. Why? Well, there's 50 states, and there are only about 20 major symphony orchestras. And governors have to run for re-election every 4 years, so you get a chance to knock them off. But the person in the orchestra job has tenure and will probably stay there for 25 or 30 years. Now, that's the cold reality. But the best part about the cold reality is, well, someone's got to do it, and why shouldn't it be you? So this competition that we have can't throw us off and can't intimidate us. Instead, it should drive us to excellence by developing qualities that are different and better than the competition that's going to be auditioning or interviewing against us. I tell my students that success at an audition or in a recital or in a jury or whatever it is that you're doing, whatever kind of competitive performance it is, it's all about separating yourself from the competition. Now this is all done in a absolutely above board collegial way. Not talking about putting sand in your competitor's trombone slide or in his valves. Or I'm not talking about that. We're talking about separating yourself because you have developed qualities that the other people don't have. And so here's a list of some of the qualities that I'm always looking for in students when I am auditioning people to come into school. So for many years it was at New England Conservatory, and now it's here at ASU. And in the short audition, I'm looking to evaluate each person that's coming in with this list of questions. Now I realize when you audition at a school, you're trying to evaluate your potential teacher and say, is this the person that's going to be able to help me get where I want? You have to realize they're also listening to you, not just whether you're going to get admitted or not. That's the big question. In a sense, that's sometimes the easy question. More important is this student going to be a person that's going to be a special student, a special player, a special person that wants to absolutely change the world? And these are the qualities that I'm looking for in students. And see if you recognize any of this in yourselves. Does the student possess not only the desire, but the will to improve? Not just desire, but the will to improve. Does the student have an insatiable musical curiosity? When I assign the student material to prepare for the next lesson, does he or she fully prepare it? Does the student arrive punctually for lessons? Does the student arrive warmed up and ready to play at the lesson? If you ask the student to listen to a recording or bring in a score of a particular piece, does she do it and perhaps listen to more than just one recording? Does he have questions to ask you about it? Is he just doing what you asked, or is he doing more because he's interested in knowing more? Does the student treat you with respect? Does the student inspire his peers to want to be better players? Does the student understand that she has much to learn from her peers, even if she's a better player than they are? Does the student seek out opportunities to play in a variety of different kinds of musical ensembles, not just the kind they want to be in? Does the student make the effort to go hear performances live, or is their whole life spent under headphones? Does the student respect your need for privacy? Does the student listen to and try suggestions that you make? Does the student trust that your years of experience are valuable and he can learn something from you even if what you say may not immediately make sense? Does the student find ways to contribute to the musical community at school and at large by doing research and encouraging friends who are composers to write for the instrument and doing extra things outside of simply sitting in a practice room with a cup on your face? Does the student go the extra mile when preparing lesson material? Does the student demonstrate a cooperative, cheerful attitude when working with others in ensembles such as orchestra, band, brass band, trombone, choir, other groups? Here's a big one. Is the student the kind of person and player that you wish your teacher could have had? Is the student highly self-motivated? And finally, truly I think the most important thing, is the student willing to delay present pleasures to obtain future rewards? Many years ago, I had an internet discussion when I was on a trombone email forum. And the discussion was what's required to take auditions and things. And I wrote in about my interest in studying scores, and that I thought that this is a good time of life for young players starting out to begin to build your score library and collect orchestral scores, collect a large amount of repertoire, so you have these things at your disposal. Purchase recordings, go to concerts and do things so you can begin to understand more about what it is that you want to be doing. And a young player wrote back and said, "You're being too hard. I can't afford to buy that Mozart Requiem score. I mean, I need my money for other things. I mean, I'm paying for rent, I'm paying for school. I like to go out on Friday nights with my friends. I like to have a beer, we go to a movie. And I don't have the money to get all these things that you're saying. And I wrote back to him and I said, you cannot say, and none of you can say, I cannot afford this or that. Because we all make choices. It's all about choices. If you want to go out and have a few beers with your friend on Friday night, assuming, of course, you're of legal age, if you want to do that, that's a choice. But you cannot say, therefore, that you can't buy that Mozart Requiem score. You can't say that because you made a choice. If you want to go out to movies with your friends, or you want to buy the next video game, or you want to, whatever it is, you cannot say, yeah, but I can't buy those CDs, or I can't download that music. Because we've made a choice. Sometimes a choice is a desperate one. I will buy the Mozart Requiem score, or I will not pay rent this month. Well, that's probably not true for most of us. Okay, we are in the 1% in the world. All right, we have so much more than most people in the world, even those of us who have the least. But the point is that we all make choices. And so the question that we have to answer ourselves is, can we delay present pleasures for future rewards? I used my two daughters, Linda and Robin, as examples. They're grown now. Linda's 33. She's a trombone player and a music teacher in Chicago. Robin's 30. She was a trumpet major, and now she's a communications manager for the San Francisco Opera. So they're both in music, doing different things than I'm doing, and I'm very, very proud of them. But I use them as an example because they were talented, like all of you are, okay? And when you were in high school, you were talented. And our girls took lessons with me, and they were good. They worked hard, they were diligent, and they got into region band and orchestra and all state and all Eastern and all national groups and things like that. And their friends would say to them, okay, apart from genetics, how did you get good? All right, I don't know about you, but in our school district, band period was first thing in the day, like 7:30. And so Linda and Robin would get up every morning at 6 o'clock and they'd warm up for 20 minutes. So the first note of the day wasn't a slam bam of band period at 7:30 a.m. So they had to get up early. So they said to their friends, well, I get up at 6 o'clock and I warm up and practice for 20 minutes. And their friends uniformly had the same response. I could never do that. All right, but that's a choice. The famous story, which is too good not to be true, perhaps it's apocryphal, is someone going to the great Jascha Heifetz and saying, Mr. Heifetz, I'd give my life to play like you do. To which Heifetz responded, I have. He was willing to make the sacrifices. It didn't just come as luck. It didn't come just by pretending that you were going to do something, but not doing it. My friend Tom Everett, bass trombone player and director of bands at Harvard University, told me this wonderful story when he was auditioning people for the Harvard Jazz Band one year. They were low on trumpet players, and he was pretty despondent about it. He's sitting in the room waiting for people to walk in, and nobody was showing up. And then he looks up, and coming around the door was this little head. It was a guy. He had a little goatee, and he had a little beret on his head. And he says, is this where they're having auditions for the jazz band, man? And Tom brightened up, thought, wow, I got a live one here. This is good. Yeah, come on in. The guy comes in, he's got gig bag and mute bag, and he's got headphones around his neck. He says, I just want to make sure, man, that this is like the real jazz band. It's not that kind of ticky-tacky stuff. It's a real thing. Yeah, we play real jazz. Yeah. Okay, what do you want me to play? Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So Tom says, okay, I got this Dizzy Gillespie tune here. I want you to play 16 bars. I want you to do it twice, and I want you to play 3 choruses and then take it out. Okay, oh man, I know this tune. This is good. This Blue Note, and the Max Roach is playing the trombone, doing all this kind of stuff. Okay, fine, good, we got this. Guy gets up and he goes to play. As Tom described it, went like this. And this went on for about 3 or 4 minutes. And Tom was just like flabbergasted. He goes, well, you want to try that again? No, man, what's next? Okay, This guy had the persona of the trumpet player, and he had everything he needed except he couldn't play. He knew all the players. He had all the equipment. He knew the jive routine. But he didn't know how to play. Okay? Because he had made choices. He decided the persona was more important than the person. Who people thought he was more important than who he actually was. We have choices to make. And so we are looking for these qualities that are going to allow us to succeed and to excel. So, when you meet somebody for the first time, what are the things about them that help you form your first impression? That's a question. What are the things when you meet someone the first time? You may not say them to them. What's going on in your mind as you're meeting somebody for the first time?
Appearance.
Appearance, yep. So it's a visual thing. First thing, okay? What else?
Eye contact.
Eye contact, okay. Are they comfortable with you? What else? Smile, good, okay, good. So smile, we're seeing a lot of visual things, okay? So then there's also, well, how do they talk? What are their first words, right? And is there a coherence to them? Is there a verbal coherence, a visual coherence, something that holds them together and seems like, this is somebody I'd like to meet? Remember, your first impression is always the strongest impression in anything that you do. We don't get many opportunities to reinvent ourselves and have a first impression again to the same people. Why is it that on so many tenor trombone auditions, the very first excerpt asked, and I believe it was the case back in August when you took your auditions, is the Mozart Requiem tuba mirum solo? Why on so many tuba auditions do we find the solo from Der Meistersinger first up? I'll tell you why. If you cannot play a B-flat major arpeggio in the tuba mirum solo, tuba mirum spargens song, or you can't play those opening notes of the Meistersinger solo, C, G, G, G. If you can't play those notes in tune and in time, it really doesn't matter how good your bolero is. It really doesn't matter how good your B-low is. It really doesn't matter how your Sam Goldenberg and Schlemiel is. It really doesn't matter if you can't do the simple things. Tonic, dominant, B-flat, major arpeggio. Impressions are made immediately, right off the bat. And so you need to understand this high standard that's being put up there for you to do the basics. It's not that complicated. It really isn't. But let me tell you some things about what I hear when I hear auditions, and some things that I've heard in even the juries that we just had. And let me just say, all the brass players who played juries did a good job. Nobody failed. Nobody was embarrassed. Nobody left crying, I hope. All right? I hope not. If you did, see me afterwards. Tell me if I did something that made you cry. All right? But I was very impressed by the level of brass playing. It was the first time I'd actually been able to really hear, what do we have here at ASU, apart from the trombone players? So that was really, really good. But let me give you some things that you can think about and you can work on yourself as you continue to take auditions, whether they be juries here or continue with recitals, interviews, and other kinds of auditions. 1, sound. Okay, if you do not have a great sound, nothing else matters. Because just think about it. When you've been around people that don't have a good sound, when you're listening to them, are you saying, oh, I'm sure glad he's got great pitch though. I just can't blend with him. And it throws you off, and there's turbulence and everything. So, work on your sound. Most of you had really good sounds. Some of you have work that you can do on this. How do we get a good sound? Number 1, role models. Who has good sounds that you're listening to and working with? I think one of the reasons why my daughters had good sounds on the trumpet and trombone was because they lived in a house with me, and I was playing trombone all the time, and that was a sound that they heard all the time. Surround yourself with good sounds. The complicated world we live in has so much bad noise in it. We have to fight to get away from the noise and surround ourselves with good sounds, good quality sounds. Okay, intonation. Most players, and I'm not just talking about young players, but most players really don't understand the amount of music theory you have to understand to know how to play in tune, and the role of your note in a chord. This is important. I was not a good student in music theory. Okay? Anybody else here who's like theory's not their favorite thing? Okay, I feel it. I'm with you. All right, 100%. I did enough in theory to pass. But what I passed with, I still have right now. Same thing with foreign languages. I was never good when I was younger in foreign languages. That didn't happen until later. It took me 3 years to pass Spanish 1. And I think I passed Spanish 2 because the teacher said, I'm going to fail you, but I'll pass you if you promise not to take Spanish again next year because I don't want you in my class. All right? So, but you know what? The Spanish that I remember, I really remember. So I can get myself out of a jam in Spanish because I remember the important things. Okay, you need to understand and remember the important things about theory and intonation. Things like drones, they're popular tools that people have, but I'm not yet persuaded that they help you as much as you might think that they do. I do know that drones help you to play well in tune with drones, but I don't play in musical groups with drones. I play with people. And so your best intonation study is to work with other people and play with other people and play duets with other people and understand what it is about intonation that you can actually intuitively hear, pick up, and change. One way that you can do this, I think, is you practice chorales, Bach chorales. You all had to do harmonic analysis of Bach chorales at some point in your life. Okay, record the melody, and then play that back, play yourself back, live person, just play self back, and then play another part with it. The alto, the tenor, the bass line, whatever it may be, etc. Okay, intonation. Rhythm, tendencies. We all have the same tendencies. Every musician in the entire universe has the same tendencies when it comes to rhythm. We always come off dotted notes and ties late. Everybody does. Everybody. We always take too much time to take a breath. We always play the bottom note of an octave jump late and flat. But, it's always late and it's always flat. Always, guaranteed, 100% unless you're intentional about it. So all players have these same tendencies. You need to identify your tendencies when it comes to rhythm, and then you are the one person at the audition that doesn't make those mistakes. Because you have to realize on the audition committee, everybody is listening. They've heard people play these things over and over again. They know the places where everybody has the same tendencies, the same problems. And you need to be intentional to say, I'm not going to be that person. Okay, style. In a few of your juries, I saw some frozen looks. And frozen looks usually result in dull performances. If you can take what I said earlier and say that when you march up here on the stage in the recital hall, over in Cats and Concert Hall, or even over in Gamage, and you stand up in front and you play, this is not a new place. This is a continuation of the confidence that you had in the practice room when you knew you could do something, and you bring it out here. And so you present to all of us out here the same you were presenting to yourself in the practice room. I cannot overemphasize this. Remind yourself, why do I play this instrument? And answer the question, do I love it? If you love it, you will show it, and when you show it, your playing will be different. It's a guarantee. You can't make a lot of guarantees in life. I can make a guarantee about this. Technique. Question your assumptions about how you approach your instrument. I see sloppy technique, slide, and valves both, because we are often frozen in the way that we learned our technique at a young age. Not giving ourselves the benefit of the improvement that we've made. But we make choices and decisions about what valve combinations to use, what slide position to use, how to get from one to the other, how to slur, how to tongue, how to add different syllables into our playing. We forget that we've learned something new, and we often, if not usually, revert to what we've, quote, always known. Keep asking yourself questions about things and act on what you see and hear. Legato. Brass players, legato. There is a difference between legato and really tenuto. Learn what it is. Listen to good role models about legato. Last semester, we all spent one of these Brass Area sessions up at the Rafael Mendez Library. and we saw some videos. I confess, I didn't know a thing about Rafael Mendez till I came to ASU. Wow, I'm sure glad I learned. I have such respect for him. It doesn't matter whether you particularly like his style of trumpet playing. The fact is his trumpet playing, period, is really fantastic. And you know what really impresses me the most? Not his amazing articulation and his great technique. I mean, he has that. That certainly impresses me. The thing that most impresses me is how he can play rapid passages in legato, and it sounds accurate, not simply gestural. That is, when he plays the Flight of the Bumblebee, I hear every note intentionally being played, but it never sounds pedantic or like he's forcing down vowels. He knows what he's doing, and I'm not hearing any blur. So we want to be sure that we're not approaching legato as tenuto. And your teacher knows the difference and can explain this to you. And then also articulation. Not everything is top. My colleague Norman Bolter, who played second trombone in the Boston Symphony for 30 years and sat next to me for most of that time, he said, for brass players, every articulation is a down bow. All right? Watch string players. They don't play everything with a down bow like this, hard and heavy with the full weight of the arm. It's about up bows, it's about détaché, it's about playing several notes on the same bow stroke. We need, as brass players, need to be careful that we don't approach everything as if it's a down bow. Now, some of these qualities I've just mentioned are heard in the first 2 seconds of your playing. All of them are heard within the first minute. And as I talked a few minutes ago, your first impressions are the lasting impressions. It's difficult to recover from a bad first impression. Not impossible. And believe me, when I'm listening and I hear someone that has a rough start, my thought is, okay, how are they going to put themselves together and how are they going to recover? Remember that at auditions, the positives of players are shockingly apparent because the negatives are so easy to identify. So we want to have our positive qualities be available and noticed immediately. Don't think, well, I need to get a couple excerpts going before I'm really warmed up at the audition. No, covenant to yourself that my first excerpt, my first note, is going to be the way it was when I played at my very best in the practice room. When I'm listening to auditions, when I'm going to recitals, when I'm hearing juries, what I'm thinking in my head is, I want to give you a great grade. I want to hire you. I want you to be in my orchestra. My desire is for you to have the success. I want you to win the competition. But you have to give me the chance to give you the prize. And it doesn't happen just by getting lucky. Here's the important question of all the important questions I've asked. When you play an audition, when you enroll in a competition and play your round, when you're done, ask yourself the question, if I heard me, would I hire me? We need to have honest self-assessments. And we don't do ourselves favors if we forgive ourselves and say, oh, that was pretty good. We need to honestly be honest with ourselves. Everybody in the world needs someone who loves them enough to tell them things that they don't want to hear. The problem is most of us surround people who tell us what we want to hear, because then they want us around them to tell them what they want to hear. And we all like each other. We're all happy. We're all friends. But it's not just true that, well, you're special, because everybody else thinks they're special too. Right? We're all special. Good. Let's have a group hug. Sing Kumbaya. All right? That's good. All right. But don't use that as an excuse for anything. That you need to say, yes, I'm special, but my specialness is going to be based on how I present myself. One other thing. In addition to playing great, you've got to pass the Weirdo Test. I talk to my students about this a lot. All right? Understand that we all make choices, personal choices about things that we do and aspects of who we are. But when you make choices, just be careful, because you may not feel the same way about those choices later on. So here's a question taken from a New York Times article that talks about this phenomenon. that I just posted on our Trombone Studio Facebook page. How many of you, when you were 4 years old, thought Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were the coolest thing ever? Anybody? Okay, do you feel that way now? Yeah? Good. Thank you. Yeah, but guess what? You changed. You can't imagine when you're 4 years old that you can't think that that was the coolest thing, that you'll always think that way. All right? Because we change. So be careful. Your choices that you make are not just about how you feel about it. Remember, when you take auditions, when you go places, when you take interviews, who's interviewing you? It's not someone that's just your peer. It may be someone that's 10 years older than you, your father's age, your grandmother's age. And you have to understand that those people control some of your destiny in their hands. Is that fair? That they judge you by your appearance or another aspect of a personal choice that you make? No, it's not fair at all. But it's real. It's real. And so I want you to understand that so you can make choices. My big act of youthful rebellion was to grow my hair long, as hard as that might be to imagine. It used to be down to here. And then I could wait. What happened was several years later, I woke up one day, looked in the mirror and said, "You look stupid." And I cut my hair. Okay, but at least I can reverse it, right? Just be careful about your choices. Okay, finally, my teacher, Mr. Kleinhammer, played bass trombone in the Chicago Symphony. World-class trombone players do not just happen. Their talents are forged in the dual furnaces of determination and diligence. ASU is the furnace, and I want to encourage all of you, okay? Because I've heard you play, I've heard the excellence, I've heard the hard work. I want to encourage you that here in the furnace, what protects you from getting burned is your determination and your diligence. If you're not determined, if you're not patient, if you're not diligent, if you don't want it, if you don't understand how good do I really have to get to this goal, then you're going to get burned in the furnace. Our goal here as a faculty, Dr. Svoboda here, myself, Dr. Erickson, Professor Hickman, our goal is your success. I don't need any more success. I've had loads of success. I'm here to want you to succeed. And that's what all of your faculty wants for you. I told you in the first brass area, I wanted all of you to hopefully download every bit of information that I had about music making. I hope you do. My students are all working at it. I feel like there's like this mind meld thing, okay? They want my brain. Well, not all of it. Some of it you don't want. But music stuff, okay? Take it. Ask your professors questions. And be a kind of person that has that kind of curiosity, okay? We can't live your dreams. We can't play your instrument. You do that. Let us celebrate your success because of the kinds of people that you're becoming and that you're working to be. Okay, here's the last thought. I want you to have honest and truthful ears to listen to and evaluate yourself. I wanted to have this talk at the beginning of the semester so we can go into the semester with really high goals. So at the end of this semester and the end of each semester of your life, you're going to harvest this great fruit of what you've just sown. And how do we do it? You put good seed, all right, your talents, in good earth, which is our ASU environment here that we've tried to put together, and you give it sun and water, okay? That's instruction and inspiration from your teacher and your peers and other role models. And you keep out the weeds, that's your diligent work, all right? We might just see something really, really special here in the brass area here at ASU. Not just this semester, but every semester at ASU. I want to encourage you with this because I see the talent and the ability. So go plant that seed, water it, and really keep out the weeds.